So, do you want to learn slap bass, but it just seems too hard and that thumb just won't behave itself? Well, today I'm going to give you the ultimate beginner slap bass lesson. There are a ton of slap bass videos on YouTube, and I've probably got about 70 here on my channel alone. But slap can seem really tricky at first, and a lot of lessons don't actually address some of the most important things that might seem really basic or even unrelated, but are really important. So let's get into it. Okay, I'm sure you all know what slap bass sounds like. It's that funky attacking bass technique that sounds like this. Now, first things first, before we even set thumb on a string, I would advise any beginner slapper to fit a fresh new pack of round wound strings on the bass. Any brand will do. I use DR high beams, but it doesn't really matter what brand you use. The most important thing is that they have that new string zing to them. I say this because one of the biggest complaints from beginner slappers is it just sounds wrong. You slap the string and you get something resembling a normal plucked note, but harder. So no chime, no zing. So you want that nice chime in there. Once you can play the slap style okay, you won't have to worry about it anymore, but when you're getting started, it's going to help a lot with your motivation. You also want to make sure the bass is set up okay. Go for a pretty average action, not too low, certainly not too high, and be sure you have a well set up relief. You want a touch of relief in there so the notes aren't choking out when you're hitting the strings. Then, as for pickups, if you have a one pickup bass like a precision, just turn the tone up full. If you have a two pickup bass like a jazz, turn both pickups and tone to maximum. If you have an active bass, keep the treble and bass at the midway point. So all just pretty, standard, average, default. Bear in mind that all this advice isn't actually essential. Some guys like Les Claypool have a totally unique approach and sound, but when you're a beginner, you just want everything to be as simple and easy as possible. Okay, so with slapping, we have two main attacks. We've got the thumb slap, and we have the pop. So we slap with the thumb and we pop with the finger. I use the index finger for most pops, but some others like Flea use the middle finger. It's totally down to you, and for some things, you're going to want to use both fingers. But for the sake of this lesson, I'm just sticking to using the index finger for pops. One extra attack is the left hand palm slap, which is basically this thudding ghost note played with the fretting hand. So now let's dig into the most common attack, the slap. There are two ways to do this. We have the thumb bounce and we have the rest stroke. Both are good to know and useful for different things. The bounce is probably the most common way to slap. Mark King, Louis Johnson, Stu Ham, Flea and a ton of others bounce. You literally bounce the thumb off the string, and it's great for those fast driving lines that might sound like this. The rest stroke is where we slap the thumb through the string and come to rest on the next string. This is the same as finger picking when you pluck and let the finger come to rest on the next string. This technique is used by Larry Graham, Marcus Miller, Victor Wooten and Prince. The rest stroke provides more body to the note because it's got more fundamental. The bounce has more harmonic content. It's more like a tapped harmonic, so we can play notes a little higher up with the rest stroke and retain the body in the note. And the rest stroke is also the basic foundation for learning double slap, like you see from guys like Victor Wooten. So we've got the rest stroke and then we can play down and up. So we have a downstroke and an upstroke. The downside to rest stroke is that without double thumb, it's a little limited in the speed department. So you get a deeper, more full-bodied tone, but less speed. So it's just a trade-off. But if you want to go faster with rest stroke, then you can use double thumbing, and then you can go even faster than bounce. Okay, let's try the bounce slap. So to begin with, just lay the fingers of the fretting hand lightly on the A, D, and G strings. So we're muting those off, and we're going to slap that open E string. So bend the arm at the elbow, and we're going to use a snappy twist of the wrist and forearm for the slap. So my forearm is pretty much parallel to the strings. I'm holding a loose fist with the thumb extended. Rotate up and then just hit the string and return. So I'm rotating around like this, and then it's a slight whipping motion and just bring the thumb back off. So you're not going to be holding it down. You don't want any of this. We're not we're not doing any of this. It's a slight whipping action, so the thumb is coming back to where you started. So it's just a bounce, okay? So I'm making impact with the string around the end of the fingerboard there, and I'm using the joint midway down that thumb there on the edge. So I'm hitting it about here, although to be fair, wherever you can play it anywhere, but the best tone you're going to get is going to be roughly around the end of the fingerboard. And remember, mute that A, D, and G strings with the left hand because, we don't want any horrible ringing of the open strings. And when if that's not there, and then you mute that string, you can hear that there's a lot of noise in there. So I'm muting those off, and like I said, that's super important. Now, some of you might be saying, but what about Flea? He doesn't hold his thumb like this. He holds it down. He's got his thumb pointing down like this. And yep, that's true. And you can do that. If you're a total Flea fanboy and want to copy him, that's completely fine, okay? He's brilliant. The only thing I would say is that when you play thumb down, you're going to be messing up any future prospects of moving into double thumbing because it won't work with the thumb down technique. So I need to let you know that just in case you've got any thoughts about developing your slap technique further, in the future. And you will need to have your bass slightly lower with the, in terms of the strap so that you can, get that thumb in there. You're going to be more down here. But like I say, Flea's brilliant. If you want to copy that, that's fine. But for the duration of this lesson, I'm going to be thumb pretty much pointing up or slightly, not totally parallel to the string, but kind of coming at a diagonal angle here. Now, before we go any further, it's just worth mentioning that if you want a more progressive slap bass course, taking you from the absolute basics like this all the way through to advanced double thumbing and machine gun triplets, then the Simple Steps to Slap Bass course can be found over at the TalkingBass website. It's a huge 2-volume course and takes you in incredibly simple steps through every aspect of the technique. There's a spring sale on this week, so you can get a 30% discount, or if you've seen this video after the sale is finished, use the coupon code SLAPNOW to get that 30% discount at a later date. Just click the link in the description below for more details. Okay, next, home position. Now, this is a term that I use to describe the fretting hand position that most experienced pros use, most of the time in playing, but don't usually mention. It's the secret to stopping all the noise, all the mishits, and the mess that you're likely to make as a beginner slapper, and it allows you to control your note duration perfectly. It allows you to create the left hand slap and easily add ghost notes into the mix. The fretting hand is actually responsible for most of the things that we consider a slap bass line. We always focus on the thumb, but that's only the initial strike. All of the other stuff is the left hand. This is where the home position is your friend, and this is a very, very powerful tip. So, for home position, just take the index finger and we're going to lay it lightly over the 5th fret there. So you can put it anywhere, but for the purpose of this exercise, we'll just lay it there. So this is just going to be down there over that 5th fret. So we're just laying it lightly there. So if we were to pick, you pretty much get harmonics. And then we're going to bring down the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, and they're going to extend to the E string there. So now we don't get anything. It's totally muted off. Okay, so that's a safe position. That's a good starting default position. So even if you play finger style or even with a plectrum, slap, whatever you're doing, that is your safe starting position. Or no, residual noise or anything like that, and you're not going to have any mistakes. Then let's say that we're going to slap that open E string. Well, what we do is simultaneously, we're going to slap that E string. We're going to raise the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. And there we have it. So we're allowing the note to come through. The home position is our default position, okay? That's our default position of silence. And then we allow the note to come through just like opening a door. Imagine a house with a party going on, very soundproofed, but then you open up the door, all the noise comes through, you're like, ah, and then close it off, silent. So that's what we're doing. We're starting with silence and then allowing it through. When you want to choke the note off, you bring those fingers back. So if we were to play on 1 and 3 and then just mute on 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And look, we're still holding down the A, D, and G strings, so we're not going to get any of that residual noise from the open strings. And if we miss hit, it doesn't matter. We're not going to get that. Okay? And you don't have to just use this for open strings. So if I'm going to be playing a G, 3rd fret of the E string, again, I can start in that home position. I've got the index finger over the 3rd fret here. And then when we decide to play the G, we simultaneously press down on the G, raise the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, and slap. So it's all one motion. Press down the string, lift those, slap. Okay? We're not, holding down the string, then raising the fingers, and then slapping. It's all one motion, and then back to the home position to choke it off. Okay? So you don't have to think about, okay, well, I'm going to depress the string and then do this. None of that. If you know that home position well, if you've got that position down, instinctively, muscle memory, you just revert back to it. So, that you're releasing pressure on that string as you do it. Okay? So, home position. So now, knowing home position, we can control our note duration. So, let's say we go back to that E string, and I'm going to be holding that first finger down, the index finger over that 5th fret again. So we can try. We've just tried 1 and 3. Let's try 8th note. So we're going to play for an 8th note and then choke for an 8th note. So that's going to sound like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're slapping on each beat, and then we're choking on the ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, if you miss the E string, because that is something that a lot of people have complaints about, that's one of the problems that they run into, look at your thumb. Watch where you're slapping, okay? So, eventually you won't need to, but just ensure that you're hitting that E string, okay? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and just speed it up. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And next we can try a very staccato note. So for this, we're just going to play just a short note there on each beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm slapping and then I'm just immediately bringing those fingers down. Okay, that's how you get those staccato notes. And, if we were on a G, 3rd fret of the E string, I'm in that home position, I'm just stabbing at the note there with the finger. The note duration is massively important when you're playing slap bass, okay? Because if everything was, full held duration, it ain't going to be that funky. You need to be able to control staccato notes, cutting them off on certain beats. You need to be in full control of the note duration, and that home position really helps with that. Okay, now let's try a simple bass line on an open E string using the home position for that choking. So it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. So we're slapping on 1, then we're choking on 2. 1, 2, and then on the and of 2, we're going to play a short note. So 1, 2, and. So 1, 2, and. Just got that little short staccato. Then we're going to hit on 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then choke on 4. So it's all about getting used to which beats we choke on. It's not just a case of, we're slapping on a particular, playing on a particular beat. We're actually looking at when we choke. The choke becomes a note in itself. Okay, so the actual silence becomes, a note, in terms of the actual technique. We're actually doing a thing to actually choke off. The silence requires a movement. So, 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Bring that hand down on 4. And you'll notice that now, instead of this, we've got a much more expressive and more funky line. Now let's try the same bass line but on an A. And we're going to use the open A string. So again, we can use the home position, but this time we're going to be holding the index finger on the D and G strings. But watch what I do with the thumb of the fretting hand. So it's going to sound like this. So you can see the thumb is coming round here. and I'm choking off the E string there with it. Now, you could use the home position for this, but you will find that because of the residual noise, when you're hitting that open A string, it can make the open E ring out. So I'm actually bringing that thumb round. Now, that's against a lot of the standard technique lessons that you might see where they say, okay, well, you've got to have the thumb in the back of the neck. You know, that's good technique. Well, when you're playing slap, you've got to do anything you can to cut out that noise. So that keeps everything nice and quiet on that E string, and you're taking care of the D and G strings with that first finger. I know this is a really simple bass line, but you get these basics down of all this muting stuff and the preparation with the, you know, with the hands here. And trust me, as you move on, it's going to be a lot easier. So don't slap too hard. And you could even move down here, so you could put the first finger over the second fret there. Again, I'm bringing that thumb round. And that's it. Now let's try another very simple bass line moving away from the open string. So for this, we're going to play on a C and a G, third fret of the A string and E string. So start on the C, and we have. Okay, so it's just a basic 1, and then the and of 2 again. And then on the 3, and then the and of 4. So 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. So C, C, G, G, C. Just round and round. Notice how I'm starting in home position again with that index finger over the third fret. So I start there, allow the note to come through, and I'm using that home position to choke off the note. Then I move down onto the E string with that index finger, and again I'm using the home position. Very simple exercise, very simple bass line, but it's going to get you used to moving from the A string to the E string and back. At first, you might find it a little bit tricky to isolate each string. You know, that's one of the main common complaints that you get. But over time, as you focus on looking at where you're hitting, over time, you're going to get used to the position of the arm and where it needs to be until you don't have to think about it. So if I want to hit the A string, I've not looked at it, I just know. And it's pretty much down to just knowing the feel of it, where the arm is, where if you have a very consistent technique, so the arm is always the same. My arm is always in this position for slap. I know that when I'm there, that when I do that, I'm on the A string. When I do that, I'm on the E string. Okay, it's just about consistency and practice. Okay, next. Pops. So let's take a C at the 5th fret of the G string with the index finger. Then take the index finger of the picking hand, place it slightly under the G string, just at the end of the neck there, just at the end of the finger as well, and maybe just slightly over on the edge, just slightly off center, and place it under, and then just rotate the hand round to get that snap, okay? So the finger goes very slightly under, you don't put it right under there, not like this, and it's only a very slight snap on it. So just slightly under, and then you just rotate, okay? And you'll notice that, you pop that, and it's not that funky. What you need to do is, again, be in control of the note duration. You want to get a nice staccato pop. So that's legato, that's full duration, and then so it's more of a stabbing motion with the index finger there. That's what you're aiming for. Because it's very rare that you're going to be playing. It's going to be more. Or. It's got that percussive sound. So you want to aim for that staccato note. You can play full length if you need to at certain points. But that's the one you want to aim for. If you can play full staccato, then all of the other note durations are going to be easy. So now let's try a simple slap pop line moving between C and B flat. We're going to take an octave pattern. So that's going to be 3rd fret of the A string to 5th fret on the G string. So just try getting that octave there, and notice what I'm doing with the fingers here. I've got 1st and 4th fingers taking the octave, and then I've got these middle fingers in between choking off the E string. So a lot of minimal movement there. say a lot of minimal movement, I just mean minimal movement. So then you can move down to the B flat, so down to the 1st fret on the A string, 3rd fret on the G string. And notice I'm cutting these notes short. I'm stabbing at them with the fretting hand. Like I said, the initial attack, that's in the the slapping hand, but all of that other stuff, the duration, all of that, anything like that is coming from the fretting hand. This is where you get that sound. Just try and move in between those 2 octaves. And now let's try dropping down onto the E and D string. So we're going to play G, then down to F. Again, same pattern. And you'll probably find this one more tricky. The reason being, you've got to get that index finger of the popping finger in between the D and the G string. So when you play the G string pop, nothing's in the way. You can just do what you want with the hand. But when you play here on the D string, you've got to get that finger in there. So you have to be prepared. So as soon as I've played the slap, the finger comes in between the D and the G string. You see there, I play the slap and the finger drops in there. And then it's ready. And when you play the pop there, you've got to pop it out a little bit more rather than it's not as much rotation. On the outer one, you can rotate. On this one, it's kind of on the inside a little bit of the finger, not fully inside, just the edge, and you're actually popping outwards. So slap, and as you slap, the finger drops in there. I found this ridiculously hard when I very first started slapping. If I had to go, that bass line, I just couldn't play it. I was like, it just was all messy because I couldn't get that finger in there. So, eventually it becomes muscle memory. You won't have to worry about it. But at first, I guarantee that'll be the thing that causes problems. Just working on it. Okay, finally, let's look at the left-hand slap. So that's this thuddy noise thing there, just from bringing that hand down. You're whacking the strings with the left hand. And, if I was to say to you, that's how it's done, you whack the strings, you would probably start doing this, and you might get this. You get a hammer on. So don't worry about it, because we've already learned the home position. And if you've done home position stuff, it's really easy. So if we go back to the open E string, put that home position there, you've got the index finger over the 5th fret, choke the note, and you'll notice something. When you choke it off, as you bring the hand down, you can hear there's a little click in there as you kind of make impact with the neck and the frets. Now, if you were to, even if you did that as lightly as you could, then you might not get it, but if you actually bring it down with a little bit more force, you'll hear that little click. That's the left-hand slap. That's all it is. If I'm playing, that's all I'm doing. I'm just choking off. Okay? That's the left-hand slap. So now just try playing the open E string and just playing 8th notes. We're going to play hit, down, hit, down. So aim to get a little bit more impact with the left-hand slap and just build up speed. And you start to hear that little click or whack. That's the left-hand slap. Now let's try something really cool. We can get a 3-note phrase by slapping the open string, then playing the left-hand slap, and then slapping the ghost note. So we keep the hand down and then slap. So slap, left-hand slap, slap, okay? So the left hand stays in that position, home position. So open E, left-hand slap, ghost note. Just do that slowly. Now, on the face of it, that sounds pretty dull. But if we speed it up, you get this cool kind of locomotive kind of thing. So then we can try a bass line mix of it. So all we're doing here is what I just did, twice, and then we play D, 5th fret of the A string, we slap that, and then hammer on at the 7th fret there on the E. So it's D to E, hammer on. So. Okay, and because we're using this home position, we're already in place to play the D. So the hand is there, that index finger's over the 5th fret there. Just build up speed, so. And it's great for working on the coordination between the hands there. Once you've mastered that, you'll have mastered the left-hand slap, and you'll have mastered the home position and the slap there, getting a nice chime. So it's a really good little exercise to play. Okay, so that's slap bass. I've got a ton of slap lessons here on YouTube for you to check out. I cover bass riffs by guys like Les Claypool, Mark King, Marcus Miller, Flea, and many, many more. I also cover a ton of different slap techniques. And like I said, you can try the simple steps to slap bass course over at the Talking Bass website. 30% discount right now, and if you're seeing this video after the sale, use the coupon code SLAPNOW for a 30% discount. In the meantime, check out this video where we look at a set of 25 progressive slap bass lines from over at the Talking Bass website. We look at 5 bass riffs from the series, each one trickier than the next. So click the link and I'll see you next week.